This is the story of the Cockyolly bird. Once there was a goblin whom nobody liked. He was very mean, very selfish, and he told rather a lot of naughty stories. His name was Fifo, and he lived in a little cottage at the end of Buttercup village. Everyone wished he would go and live somewhere else, but he wouldn't, so they just had to put up with him. One day he went out onto Bumble Common to pick some yellow gorse for spell-making. As he was coming home, he saw a curious-looking nest in a bush. It was built of yellow gorse blossoms, spider's threads, and bluebells. It was the strangest nest Fifo had ever seen. He looked into it and saw 4 bright green eggs with purple spots at each end. "Those eggs should be good for making spells," he thought. "I'll take them all." Now, of course, you know that to take the eggs of birds is a most unkind thing to do. No one should take more than one, and it is better to take none at all. After all, they belong to the bird, and not to people who pass by. Fifo knew all this, but he didn't care a bit. He looked round to see that nobody was near, for it was forbidden in Fairyland to take eggs from nests. Then he quickly took all 4 eggs and slipped them into his pocket. Off he went home, planning how he could use the eggs for spells, for it was certain that such queer ones would be very useful. Fifo wondered what sort of a bird had laid them. He thought of all the birds he knew, but not one of them laid bright green eggs with purple spots. Now, when he got home, he forgot all about the eggs in his pocket. He sat down on his stool and crack, 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 every single one of those eggs broke. "Ugh," said Fifo crossly. "What a mess in my pocket. I must turn it inside out and go and wash it at the pump in the yard." So out he went and began washing his eggy pocket under the pump. He threw the bits of broken eggshell on the ground and was just going indoors to dry his pocket by the fire when he saw a very strange bird. It was bright green and had purple spots on its head and tail. "Boo-hoo-hoo!" it cried as it flew. "All my eggs are gone. Who has taken them? Boo-hoo-hoo!" As soon as Fifo saw the green bird, he hurried indoors as fast as he could, for he knew it was a Cockyolly bird, and he was afraid of what it might do to him if it found out that he had taken its eggs. But he forgot that he had left the broken eggshells out in the yard. The Cockyolly bird saw them and swooped down to them. Then it set up such a crying and howling that everyone looked out of the window to see what was the matter. Fifo locked the door, shut all the windows, and sat trembling by the fire. After a while, the Cockyolly bird stopped its crying, and Fifo saw that it was gone. But he didn't open his door and windows for a very long time. In the afternoon, he thought he was safe, so he opened his door and went out to buy some butter. But whilst he was gone, the Cockyolly bird flew in and sat up in the rafters. When Fifo came back, he brought a friend with him, and they both sat down to have tea. "Fifo stole my 4 eggs this morning and broke them all," suddenly said the Cockyolly bird in a loud voice. Fifo looked up into the rafters and saw the green bird sitting there. He was frightened and angry, so he took up a cushion and threw it at the bird. The cushion fell onto the tea table and knocked the milk jug over. It fell to the floor and was broken. "He broke my eggs, and now his jug is broken," said the Cockyolly bird, pleased. Fifo's friend was shocked to hear that Fifo had taken all the poor bird's eggs. He said goodbye and ran out, for he didn't like to take tea with such an unkind person. He told everyone he met about the Cockyolly bird sitting up in the rafters, talking in a loud voice, and all the little folk were delighted to hear that the selfish goblin was being punished. Next day, lots of village folk came to see Fifo, pretending to come and borrow this, that, and the other, but really to see if the Cockyolly bird was still there. The first person to knock at the door was Dinky, the elf, who asked Fifo if he could give her change for a shilling. "You ought to tell him to change his stockings, too," said the Cockyolly bird in a loud voice. "He's got 2 tremendous big holes in each foot. I saw them when he took off his shoes last night." Fifo got as red as a tomato. He threw a potato at the bird, but it missed her altogether and hit a lamp, which broke into 100 pieces. The Cockyolly bird laughed loudly. The next person to call was Mother Twinkle, who asked if Fifo could let her have just a drop of milk till the milkman called. "I haven't any," said Fifo. "Yes, he has," said the Cockyolly bird up in the rafters. "He's got a whole jugful in the larder. I saw it there myself." Fifo grew very red again and threw a slipper at the bird, but it missed once more and broke a vase on the mantelpiece. The Cockyolly bird laughed so much that she nearly fell off her rafter. Mother Twinkle laughed too, and went off to tell her friends what had happened. Soon the bee-man came to ask Fifo if he could tell him the right time. 11:15, said the goblin. "Hi, bee-man," cried the Cockyolly bird. "I can tell you where Fifo hides all his money. It's in the china pig on the mantelpiece. You go and see." "Be quiet," cried Fifo in a rage. He flung a piece of soap at the Cockyolly bird, and it bounced on a rafter, fell off, and hit Fifo on the head. The Cockyolly bird laughed till the tears streamed off its beak. When the bee-man had gone, Fifo looked at the bird. "If you say another word, I'll get a gun and shoot you," he said. "You horrid, horrid bird, go away before I do something you won't like." "If you go and get a gun, I'll fly down and peck your nose," cried the Cockyolly bird, and it jumped up and down on the rafters as if it were mad. Then came another knock at the door. Fifo looked at the bird and decided that he wouldn't open the door in case the bird said something else about him. So he crouched down behind a chair and was quite quiet. The visitor knocked again, and still there was no answer. Then Fifo heard someone calling at the window. "Is there no one at home?" He didn't answer, but the Cockyolly bird did. "Good morning, your Majesty," it cried. "Fifo is in, and he's hiding behind the chair. He's a horrid person. He didn't wash behind his ears this morning, and he's got holes in both his stockings, and he hides his money in the china pig and pretends he hasn't any, and he tells stories, and he's taken my 4 eggs and broken them all." Fifo peeped out to see who his visitor was, and, oh my, it was the Queen herself, who had heard about the poor Cockyolly bird's stolen eggs, and had come to ask why Fifo had taken them. The little goblin crept out from behind the chair and opened the door for the Queen to come in. "I am very displeased with you, Fifo," she said. "I see that the Cockyolly bird is punishing you, so I shall leave her to it. She shall stay here with you until you have really turned over a new leaf." What a dreadful punishment! How Fifo hated it, for the bird gave away all his secrets and told all sorts of stories about him, making him go red a dozen times a day. And at last he decided that the only thing to do was to behave nicely, and then the Cockyolly bird couldn't say anything. After a time, he became quite a nice little goblin. He was no longer selfish and mean, and he didn't tell stories. The Cockyolly bird got quite fond of him, and when the time came for her to go, she wept bitterly. Fifo comforted her, and told her she could stay if she wanted to, because he was fond of her too. So she stayed, and was very happy. "I'll build my next nest in your rafters, Fifo," she said. "But you won't take my eggs, will you?" "Oh, no," said Fifo. "I wouldn't dream of doing anything so horrid." So you can see what a different person he was, can't you?